Welcome back to my channel. We are recapping the first week of the Diddy trial with opening statements from the prosecution and from the defense. There is 12 jurors and 6 alternates. It is currently made up of 8 men and 4 women. So far, there has been 5 witnesses to take the stand. The first was LAPD officer Israel Flores, who in 2016 was the assistant director of security for the Intercontinental Hotel out in California. Now, the hotel is defunct. They're no longer in business. But during cross-examination of Cassie Ventura, it was revealed there was a $10 million lawsuit that she filed against the hotel. And she said that they were in the talks of a settlement. Speaking of which, the settlement amount between her and Sean Diddy Combs when she filed her sexual assault suit in 2023 is to the tune of $20 million. The next person was a male escort, Daniel Phillips. He also took a witness stand. And then after him, the prosecution's star witness was Cassie Ventura. Cassie Ventura actually started her testimony on Tuesday and it concluded today, Friday. And after the conclusion of her testimony, there was Homeland Security agent Yasin Binda, who was one of the agents that was there during the arrest of Combs in a New York City hotel. Also on the stand to conclude out the day was Dawn Richard. Dawn Richard, now, if you guys are old enough to remember, Combs used to have an MTV show called Making the Band, and she testified as well. But let's get into the nitty-gritty of it. So on my first day recap, when I recapped the opening testimonies of the defense and the prosecution, I also did the bulk of the recap on what Israel Flores alleged. Now, on Tuesday, which is when Cassie Ventura, when she took a witness stand, there were some arguments before the judge between the prosecution and the defense. The defense didn't want Ventura's current husband, Alex Fine, in the courtroom. The government stated that he should be in the courtroom because he's part of her support system. The judge drew a compromise. The judge ruled that Alex Fine can stay in the courtroom, but that he must leave if there is any thing with her alleged 2018 rape by Sean Combs. The defense's argument for why they didn't want him in the courtroom was because he could be called as a potential witness. So during cross-examination, if you have somebody on the witness list, they cannot be in the courtroom. And there was also some back and forth with the defense and the government about, stalling and delays and surprise questionings and stuff like that. One of the things that the government was arguing, which I thought was kind of like obnoxious even for a prosecutor, because the prosecutor should also know the extent of the law, as well as the fact that if you guys watch my day 1 recap of the trial, I said that in the United States, the burden of proof is on the prosecution, not on the defense. The defense automatically has the pre-assumption of innocence. I know that in this country, that isn't really how it works, though, even though you are automatically presumed innocence. Anyway, one of the argument was about the questioning of Ventura, and Combs' defense team argued that, the government is the one with the burden of proof. We don't need to tell the government how we're going to present our cross-examination. It's not like they don't need to better prepare the witness. They're the ones with the burden of proof. And the judge did side with the defense in that motion. The judge was also a little irate, irritated, annoyed that the cross-examination and counter-cross-examination of Ventura was taking so long. The defense also wanted to have Ventura seated before the jury came in because she is heavily pregnant. The defense felt that it was very prejudicial for the jury to see her so noticeably pregnant. They wanted her to be already seated. Once you're seated, you're kind of covered by like the little witness stand seat area, so it's not as noticeable as when you're standing up and being sworn in. The judge ruled against the defense's motion. A lawyer representing a group of news organization wanted to see the footages of these alleged freak-offs. The judge has ruled against it. The videos were shown to the attorneys and they were shown to the jurors, but how they were shown to the jurors was that they had basically these walls up. You remember back in the heyday of COVID, and that's what they had. They had a shield up so that you wouldn't be able to see it from the sides or the corners or whatever. And a lot of it had to do with you didn't need to see it if you weren't part of the jury. And I feel the same way. And the argument was that what would be the justification of seeing it? So during her cross-examination, she said that she met Combs when she was 19 years old. She started having a relationship with him when she was 21. The first time she had sex with him was in Miami. She was high. She was dating somebody else when she started seeing Combs, and she was 22 years old the first time that she had one of those freak-offs. She stated that she did it because she loved him and she wanted to please him. That was initially why she did it, but then, according to her, it turned into where she felt like it was a job. It became her primary job, and her singing career took a back seat. She also stated that as the relationship continued, that she started to feel like she had to do the freak offs, that she couldn't say no. and that saying no would lead to violent consequences. She stated that these freak-offs would continue for hours and even for days, that the longest one was 4 days, and that she would get infections from it. She stated she had so many urinary tract infections that Cipro wasn't working for her anymore, that it was no longer effective. Cipro is a antibiotics, and she also stated that she would get mouth sores and stuff like that from the freak-offs, and that sometimes even while she had an active infection, she still had to do the freak-offs. She stated stuff like he would put her down, build her up, and that he was scared to leave, and that, she had tried to leave, but he would find her. She also stated that they both saw people on the side, that she had other relationships while she was dating him. She also stated that, she was jealous of Kim Porter. A lot of the text messages and emails that were exchanged between her and Combs were read during testimony. The prosecution is trying to present her as somebody who was under duress, performing these sex acts under coercion and blackmail, while the defense is trying to paint her as a willing participant. Willing in the sense that she was doing it because she wanted Sean Combs to stay with her. He might be a shitty guy, but their argument is she chose to do this on her own in the hopes of having him stay with her, marrying her, giving her a baby, whatever. So those are the opposing arguments. She also stated that she was seeing her current husband, Alex Fine, while she was still with Combs. She stated that she had consensual sex with Combs one more time after the alleged rape. She also stated on the witness stand that her lawyers had reached out to Sean Combs' representative, to let them know that she would be writing a tell-all book. I'm not sure if it was a memoir or what, and then she had requested $30 million, and they settled for $20 million. During cross-exam, she was questioned about that again. So what do I think of her testimony? I could see why the defense wanted her seated before the jury came in. It is very prejudicial to Sean Combs, having her so heavily pregnant. You can't help but feel sympathetic to a pregnant woman, right? Now, during cross-examination of Ventura, was a female lawyer of Sean Combs that cross-examined her. And that was a smart move, because you never want it to be a man that is cross-examining a woman who is alleging domestic abuse and sexual assault. I do think that her testimony hurts him a lot for the fact that she is heavily pregnant. And what is also really damaging to him is the video. Now, the infamous video that CNN obtained last year, that video has been played multiple times in court. I think that is also very damaging to him. And even though the defense is painting him as, he's a woman beater, and that's not what this trial is about, I don't know if that will sink in or not. And even though they're trying to present it as those two arguments, I think that they would probably have a better defense if they went after like a money grab scenario instead. Right now, their defense is, okay, the guy's a pervert that enjoys baby oil. But I think from a legal perspective, though, again, going for a money grab defense would be, I think that would have a better chance of winning, driving home the fact that you're suing the hotel where you got assaulted, you waited all this time, you went to Sean Combs' people, letting them know that you're going to write a tell-all unless he gives you $30 million. He gave you $20 million. So I feel like going that route would be more beneficial for his defense. But who knows, right? I mean, maybe that is something that they'll bring up later. Who knows? The Homeland Security agent, she testified. There wasn't anything really significant about her testimony that I felt was worth recapping. The next one to testify was Dawn Richard. Dawn Richard claims that she had seen Combs assault Ventura. In her testimony, she stated that she was at one of the homes of Combs and that she saw Combs hit Ventura, that he hit her on the head with a skillet full of eggs, that he kicked her, and all this other stuff. Dawn Richards herself had sued Sean Combs, alleging that he had assaulted her. During cross-examination, something that I do want to say is that there was an allegation and a lawsuit against Sean Combs. And in one of the allegations, it stated that he had laced baby oil with like GHB, or is it GBH? I don't remember. Combs' lawyer asked Ventura, was there ever any drugs in the baby oil? And she said, no, never, which contradicts one of the allegations from his accusers. His 6 children, his mother, and the mother of his youngest child, they are in the courtroom with him as support. He looked at Cassie all the times that she came in. She has not looked at him, though. She walked right past him. During testimony, she didn't look at him. She was emotional. There were parts that she was emotional, and she testified from Tuesday all the way until Friday. So, yeah. That is basically the recap of the first week of the Diddy trial. The trial is set to last about 8 weeks. So It should be over by the end of the summer. What do you guys think the verdict will be? I personally think the government will have a really hard time proving a RICO charge. That's his racketeering and conspiracy charge. RICO charges are really hard to beat, but they're also really hard to prove. So like if you have a solid case, like mobsters, the feds usually hit RICO charges with mobsters, with the mafia. And they do it is because it's a criminal organization, a criminal enterprise, you know? So that's why it's like what they always charge the mafia with, the mob, because you have a solid case to prove criminal enterprise, a criminal organization. So essentially what the government is trying to say is that Sean Combs is a mobster, that he basically, his bad boy records is basically the mafia, if you want to look at it that way. They're going to have a really hard time to prove that. They're trying to prove it by stating that his employees, his, personal staff, his bodyguards, whatever, that they all facilitated this. I don't know if they can make a case for that. And I think that is why, the defense is going with the argument that, yeah, he's a woman beater and, he's a pervert, but he's not on trial for being a pervert or being a woman beater. And, the odd part is, even though there are statutes of limitations on domestic violence and sexual assault, they could have still charged him with sexual assault crimes, criminal charges that they could have brought against him as far as sex crimes were concerned. But they didn't charge him with any sort of sexual assault crimes. They charged him with prostitution and human trafficking, and all it takes is one person for a hung jury. So what do you guys think so far? What was the most shocking allegation that you've heard on the witness stand? What do you feel will be the outcome for Sean Combs?